Guys, this is Richard Rodriguez, the Pablo Escobar of steroids, as per Forbes and as per New York Times, Miami Times, and this is my story. The steroid industry, man, is just like any other drug industry, man. At one point in time, it's like I want to use this as a segue of letting you guys know what my experience has been within the past 5 years and some crazy stories that you can only imagine. I was a kid that grew up without a father. But however, I had a mother that, regardless of the fact that she would work 3 or 4 jobs to make ends meet, she would show me as much love as attention that could possibly be offered. So in other words, I was a mama's boy. But I always wanted to be the best at anything that I did in my life. So I remember being in sports, getting my butt kicked and doubling up on training, doubling up on supplements at that point in time to get that much better. And fast forward to like the age of 13, when my mom was working about 3 or 4 jobs just to make ends meet. She hasn't met my step-pops during that time. I remember I was in the Pan Am Taekwondo Federation, and this is when my love for steroids and anabolics grew. I remember my first fight, I probably trained for like about 3.5 months. I am talking about sparring, training 3 to 4 hours. Mind you, I was 13 years old, where kids would like probably enjoy themselves at that time. And I'm training just for a fight. And I'm there like training, and the Battle of the Dojo, Sheraton Hotel hits. I'm getting annihilated by the individual I'm fighting, and I'm talking about like the guy didn't train half as intense as me, but this kid was hitting almost twice as hard as me. The stamina, I mean, this is like straight out of a scene of fucking Rocky, like Ivan Drago, when you would see this guy's like, I'm going to crush you, and it's like his sweat, like the dude not even sweating. So after that annihilation, I remember talking to my Shihan, and I was like, hey man, what went wrong there? And he's like, well, that kid took vitamins, and he continues to take vitamins. I'm like, great. Well, if I'm able to replicate the same intensity from a training perspective, the only thing that separates me from this individual, I want those fucking vitamins. And I remember that's when the beauty of steroids, unbeknownst to me of what I was actually taking, started. Started off with Dianabol and Anadrol and Anavar. If you guys know the strength of those products, at the age of 13, you could only imagine with somebody fresh, never taking any form of pharmaceuticals like that, the effects that it possessed. Fast forward now 3 months in, taking those products, I was in those matches, just annihilating people on the first round, knocking them out. I was indestructible. I felt like at the age of 14, 15, while I was still in martial arts, I felt like I was fucking Wolverine. I would be able to recuperate quickly. A person would kick me, I wouldn't feel shit. To the standpoint where I developed such a great reputation in the Taekwondo Federation that a guy that used to train martial artists like Don the Dragon Wilson, Superfoot Wallace, in the PKF, in the Professional Kickboxing Federation, a guy by the name of Jonas Nunez saw me in one of my competitions and said, hey, have you ever considered fighting professionally in kickboxing? During that time, Muay Thai wasn't as popular as it was now, and I fell in love with it. It was a different course, but what a lot of people fail to realize is that I started taking more drugs, specifically in the performance enhancement side, to, and at 16, 17 years old, full contact matches, taking these products that have severe side effects psychologically, neurologically, even health-wise, that individuals in their 30s or 40s, I was taking it at that age just to get that edge. I was fighting people to the standpoint where even when they were knocked out, I was getting on top of them and just like pounding on their faces. Like, people have to understand that I was like this raging madman. And I remember the one and only fight that I ever lost. And I was 17-0. I got to the standpoint where the person that I was scheduled to fight that day had a record of 3-14. So I got cocky. I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm on all these products. This guy's record is pitiful. I'm going to annihilate the crap out of that guy. And this was during the time in which WWF was very, very popular. My mom was like a diehard Stone Cold Steve Austin fan. Generation X, you name it. We used to go into Madison Square Garden to watch these wrestling matches all the time. So I used to take her to my matches. She used to be like my biggest cheerleader. And that day, I remember within the first round, I'm punching this guy with all my might. I'm kicking this guy with all my might. And he's just taking it. It's like if I was punching a wall. It's not phasing him. So I remember about 15 seconds from the first round ending, I jumped up in the air about to give him a fist into the face. And he just dodged, and he just caught me with a roundhouse kick to my head. And I got knocked out. I remember my Shihan was telling me that it's like my mom thought it was straight up a fucking match out of WWE. She came out, took her folding chair, went in there. She wanted to fucking throw that chair and hit the guy and his coaches, with the chair, because they thought I was dead. They took a while to get me back up, and reasons why I say this story is because I took anabolics to get that edge during that time in my life. But guess what? It didn't guarantee me all wins. I got knocked the fuck out. But reasons why I like that story is because at that point in time, I was taking steroids at a larger scale, personally, not distributing it. I realized that it wasn't the be-all, end-all, because you still needed to have that discipline. You still needed to train, because I looked at this individual and I deviated from my routines. I was like, oh, he has a losing record. I'm going to annihilate the crap out of this individual. Not. So now that you guys have a history of where I was exposed to anabolics, I'm going to keep on telling you about my history all throughout high school. High school and competitive sports, especially football, wrestling, gymnastics, you name it, depending on the school, if they were well respected, it was easily distributed. Sometimes even the coaches, I remember when I was at Kennedy High School, in the football team, the Kennedy Knights, they were beasts. They were like undefeated for like 3 years straight. And they were like the football team to beat. But guess what? You go in there, these kids in the first year, say in JV and varsity, are roided out of their minds. So the only way for me to actually be part of the starting lineup is to do more roids than them. So it was a never-ending cycle because of the fact of me being so competitive. Same situation when the wrestling, when football season was over, I used to transition into the Greco-Roman wrestling. And at that time, it was Truman High School out of the Bronx that were like the monsters of wrestling. I'm talking about like these guys used to fly even to fucking Russia to train with like the best of the best. And I had friends in Truman High School, and when I'm looking at these cycles of some of these kids, I'm like, fuck, in order for me to even fucking have a remote chance of winning, I gotta do something. So here I am at that point in time, not having a good source for anabolics. So what do? It's not the internet era, where it was easy to run a Google search to figure out how to compound these products. So what I started doing was I started going to the library, reading chemistry books. And that's when I started figuring out how to compound these products myself. And boy, man, do I have stories in that area. It's like, here you have like this kid in his kitchen. We're living with his mother, stirring these things up, stirring these testosterone products. And my mom, ignorant that she is, not knowing what it was, she's like, hey, what are those products? I'm like, Mom, I'm just manufacturing some perfume. And I wasn't doing it from the standpoint of illegally monetizing it or distributing it. It was just for me, because I trusted myself, and because I know that I was not going to be providing myself a product that's bunk, that wasn't of high quality or high caliber. So that's when I started compounding pharmaceuticals, specifically in the performance enhancement side for me. And dude, I was a beast. My first year, it was so funny. My first year, my record was 1-12 in Greco-Roman wrestling. However, the person that I defeated at the Empire State Games was a guy that was undefeated for 4 years in Truman High School. It was actually his last year. I wasn't even ranked. So I was the first match off the rip. I remember stretching, and his coach was like, oh man, I'm going to record you getting your ass kicked. Dude, that light fire up my ass to the standpoint where those 3 minutes, I was going to make that guy my bitch. And eventually came to the point where the last minute and a half, I had this guy held, and you see him trying to escape my grip, because in wrestling, I was only leading by 1 point. In wrestling, if you escape a person's grip, that's 2 points. So that's all he needed to do, was just escape my grip. Man, I was just conjuring up any little ounce of energy that I had to hold on to this guy, to when the time in which the bell finally rang and I was crowned, I was crowned the victor. Man, I went into that dude's camcorder and I was like, how's that fucking loss? I started talking trash. And it's funny because I'm 43 now, and I think back about those stories, and that competitive spirit, that competitive edge, that desire of wanting to be the best, it existed when I was a kid. Now it's just controlled because I'm older. And knowing now that I can, that I had the capabilities of compounding it myself, and having been exposed to it now, because now I'm like 17 years old in comparison to like when I was 13 years old, when I was first exposed to it and misled that it was vitamins. That's 5+ years of experience. So here I am now in college. I decided never to really, in college, gosh, I have some crazy college stories, man. Here I'm at college. I never really partaked in sports, in college, because I was more ambitious in owning my own business than I was in ever really wanting to evolve in sports. So I started, while to college, I had 3 jobs. I was working as a fire safety director, which is like a security guard, high-end security job, a security guard job, for Morgan Stanley Dean Witters building. I was a personal trainer, and I also did, I did personal training, and I was a security guard and going to school. And I did sales at one point in time, selling copiers. So that's when I started gaining the skills necessary to not just be a successful entrepreneur, but to have that type of capability of convincing, understanding, like knowing how to overcome rebuttals and rejection. And gosh, when I think about my history in sales, I think about, you have to think about the movie Gary Glenn Ross when, when it's like ABC always be closing, and Mr. Baldwin's famous speech is like, you know what it takes to be successful in sales is like balls, brass balls. And it's funny because that's when I realized that I had something that, while people might declare a disadvantage, was an advantage to me. I had what's called ADD. I had just trouble concentrating. So that's when I was prescribed Adderall. And dude, Adderall gave me that relentless, I'm talking about that relentless attention, where I was at work, man, making 150, 200 phone calls to get those 10 meetings, to get those 5 proposals, to getting 2 clients a day. Like, I was clocking that, it's like I was clocking it in, knowing that I would go in there for those 4 hours or those 5 hours to sell copiers. I knew exactly what I needed to do in order for me to have what's called a productive day. Then, on top of that, in between that job, I would be a personal trainer. So what I would do is I would do sales for a couple of hours, go to school for 2 to 3 hours, come to the gym, be a trainer for 4 or 5 hours. That's when I started being exposed to some of the power lifters and the bodybuilders that I'm notoriously known today to still coach and work with. And during that time, I kept realizing, I was like, hey, you know what? This is a rat race. Like, I'm working all these jobs to make ends meet because I'm at school, but I gotta launch something. So that's when I launched my first business. And during that time, it was funny because I was dating my wife, and here you have a guy working 8-hour days, coming home to play 6 hours of Madden football. And it was so funny because, boy, I have stories, man. I remember one time I was so addicted to Madden, where my wife used to be practically naked in front of the TV screen wanting to have sex. And I was so focused, man, on those games that I would just tell her, I was like, please leave me alone. Like, let me finish this game. But what people don't understand is that, hey, you know what? You can make a living in these video games. However, at that point in time, I wasn't making a living because I was trying to compete. At one point in time, I was ranked 3rd in the U.S. in Madden football. And up until the point in which I competed for 3 years, didn't place anywhere higher than 3rd place. And my wife gave me an ultimatum. It's funny as hell. She basically told me, like, hey, you know what? It's either Madden or me. And as you know, you can't have a very happy life just playing video games. So I obviously chose my wife, and we had a phenomenal child, and we had a phenomenal relationship, and I left the gaming industry. That's not to say that I did not stay in that gaming industry, because I also launched another business called Game Media Empire during that time, where I figured out a way to circumvent the systems with EA Sports to develop an eBay trading platform for digital cards. That was another business that while it was short-lived, because I had some legal issues with EA Sports, it also showcased and further validate my entrepreneurship capabilities. And now here I am, graduating college, already have launched 2 businesses. Where do I go now? Where do I go to launch? For that next, to take my achievements to the next level. I ended up seeing a job opportunity. And during that time, it was monster.com, some job website, for a junior director role at McKinsey. But it required a list of all these different experiences, like 3 years of management experience, 5 years of sales experience, certain CRM, 3 or 4 years of experience, and that. I lied my fucking ass off on my resume. Knowing that it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, there's going to be a time in which I'm going to have to be put to the test. And if I don't pass with flying colors at that point in time, I was going to be out of a job. So I remember applying. I got a call within like 2 days from the person that till this day is my mentor, Peter Janover, saying, hey, we would like to interview you. And I'm like, great, when is the interview? And they're like, oh, can you come by in 2 days? And I'm like, no, I'll come by in a week. And the reasons why I deliberately delayed the interview is because I knew they were probably going to test me in the softwares. I knew they were going to probably test me in some areas. So what did I do? It's like, just like how I was able to quickly learn how to compound products, I'm going to quickly learn how to overcome these obstacles if I'm put to the test. So I brought the CRM software. I started doing research on the industry. I started doing research on what the position entails, to the standpoint where, fast forward to the interview, I remember Peter Janover asking me key questions, and then eventually asking me questions relevant to the software, questions relevant to what a person with 4 years of management experience would respond. And having the fact that I've done hours upon hours upon hours upon hours of research, the guy was like, I remember the conversation, he's like, wow, man, it's like, you've done a lot, it's like, you've done a lot, in such a short time frame. And during that time, there wasn't, they used to give you like these 90-day probationary periods, because it used to take 90 days to figure out whether or not you were full of shit, whether or not you were lying in your resume. It's not like now where you can do a background check in 5 minutes and you're good to go. So I ended up getting the job, and let's fast forward 30 days into the position. I was already number 73 out of 200 junior executives from a sales revenue perspective. About the 90th day, 91, 92, they didn't immediately find out that I fabricated things in my resume. I would say like about 100 days in, I was in Long Island City in a meeting, and he calls me and he's like, hey, Rich, you got to come in, man. We got to talk to you. I was like, all right, cool. So here I am at the office with Peter Janover, my mentor, and 2 senior executives at McKinsey. And it's just crazy. They're like, hey, man, you got something to confess to me? And I'm like, no, man, I'm really excited about, the next quarter. My reps are forecasting XYZ as far as revenue is concerned. I'm stoked, man. I'm ready to go. And they're like, man, cut the bullshit. You haven't even graduated college yet. You have 0 experience in sales. You have 0 experience as a sales executive, and it leads me to believe that you don't even know jack shit or have the licenses in these CRMs. But when we test you, you pass with flying colors. And now you're number 3 nationally as a junior director in sales. So you have us in a very difficult situation. And I'm like, what difficult situation is that? They're like, here I am forced to having to possibly fire you, but you're generating so much revenue for us. So that's when I started telling him, Bob Cusick and Ed Barnes, I remember them. And I told them, I was like, look, well, that's a very difficult situation you guys are going to be in. What do your jobs depend on? And they're like, on the success of our executives. I was like, so that should be an easy solution. And they're like, what? Keep me on board. They looked at each other. I was like, you have a point. And I've worked for that company for 6.5 years. So that's an additional 3 years after that situation happened. During that time, I was still keeping tabs of the bodybuilding industry. I had friends like, Victor Martinez, Oliver Burke, Ronnie Coleman, Kevin LeBron, all those people. I still was keeping in touch with them because I was always in the gym industry. I was a kid that always wanted to own a gym. I was a kid that sporadically, I always wanted to be a bodybuilder or a powerlifter and all that, and evolve and eventually owning my own gym. So here I am after 6.5 years, realizing that things are going great in this company, but I'm not really getting anywhere from an upward mobility perspective. My money is just not growing the way that I want it to grow. So I politely asked for a relocation to Florida, quit in Florida, and started working for Quest Diagnostics, launching their company. But this is when I was exposed to the lifestyle of Miami. And here you have a kid that struggled all throughout his life, never had the finer things in life. The $150 Jordan shoes that see all these little drug dealer kids and families wearing. I was wearing hand-me-down Jordans from my cousin or some family member because my mom couldn't afford to buy me those $130 shoes. To now living in a place like Miami where the nightlife is crazy. The women are crazy. Gosh, it's like, it's just what anybody that's ambitious or dreams about being on top or the best in anything, Miami's like their dream place. So here I am, my wife 3 months pregnant at a beachfront condo, only driving a fucking Honda Accord at that time, but being constantly exposed to this type of environment. I told myself, hey, you know what? It's like, let me launch another business. Let me launch another business because in order for me to have this kind of lifestyle here with my income that's coming in, it's next to impossible. So I started seeing all these pain clinics, but opening up, and all these steroid companies. When I say specifically steroids, anti-aging clinics opening up. And for those of you that don't know, Miami is very laid back when it comes to anti-aging pain clinics. Like, you don't even need to have a licensed doctor to open one up. You could be an ex-con and be able to open up a clinic. So here I am seeing all these places around the freaking corners, ads for low T, and I'm like, holy crap, this must be legal. So I went ahead. My wife still not giving birth. Formulated a plan. There was a friend of mine that was a trainer that brought forth the idea, saying, "Hey, Rich, why don't we go to gyms?" But that's because the guy wasn't as educated as I was, and now he's like, "Why don't we go to the gyms? I know a couple of the owners, man. We could distribute these things." And I'm going to myself, and I was like, "Yeah, but that will increase the chance of getting caught." And he wasn't grasping the fact that, hey, you know what? It's like, yes, that is indeed true. So I kept trying to formulate a plan, and this is something that took about a good 2 months to plan. I was like, how can I distribute at the scales that I would be distributing to gym owners so they could resell it to their gym members, but never have it touch my hands, never meet someone face to face? So during that time, I had about $45,000 in my 401k. And by that time, I already had 6.5 years working in McKinsey. I've launched multi-billion-dollar drugs like Viagra, Cialis, Combivir for this. So I know about scaling. I knew about growing a business, compliance, etc., etc. So I wiped out my life savings without my wife knowing. And gosh, it's like I just started popping my Adderalls and got on the computer, my laptop, and just started going berserk. Started going into Facebook forums, started going into steroid forums, and just promoting I started off just going nuts and just slandering all the illegal distributors. So if you were somebody that would be in there like promoting a brand, I'm saying, hey, his product is trash. Sometimes it wasn't even the fact that it was indeed true. It was just the fact that I would slander the person who was like, hey, his product is trash. And guess what happens? 9 out of 10 times, the person that would believe you that it is indeed true would then ask you, like, hey, well, then do you know a viable source? And that's when I would have someone else that would work for me be the person that I would refer them to. Saying it's like, by the way, I do know of a company, which was happened to have been my company, that has phenomenal products. I was doing that for like a good, gosh, like a good 3 to 6 months. By month 6, man, I had fuck you power. I was making about $3,000 to $4,000 in sales a day gross, for which I was taking home about $2,000. And because I was a distributor back then. So that's when I saw the potentials. So what I did was, that's when I was exposed to more money than I ever had. I started reinvesting the money, kept on reinvesting, hiring more people, outsourcing more people in India. Here I am going from like a small apartment while it was in Central Park West, making collectively a household income of $200,000 a year collectively, to now being able to make that in a week. So you could, for somebody that's not accustomed to that or have been properly trained, you could only imagine how that transforms your life. So what I ended up doing was, I ended up constantly reinvesting that money to the standpoint where by like the first year, a little over the first year, I'm mingling in the Olympias. I'm mingling in the Arnold Classics. Every bodybuilding show you can imagine. I'm in backstage. Everybody knew who the fuck I was. And that ego, that admiration, dude, just blew me up. Just blew me up mentally to the standpoint where I thought I was practically fucking untouchable. I just kept on replicating the efforts on the marketing side, hiring 5 more people, hiring more sales reps, it's like being more effective in the internet marketing side, to the standpoint where I was figuring out ways to circumvent Google. I was figuring out ways to circumvent Bing, so I could literally be capable of advertising Anavar online, steroids online. And it's crazy because when you look at the history during that time, there was so many people were bad-mouthing me because they were trying to figure out how the fuck I was doing it. But what was even crazier was when I started averaging about $5,000 to $6,000 in sales a day, and I aligned myself with a merchant account processor and was able to now run credit cards online. That's when shit started hitting the fan. Because imagine you're a crackhead, you're a pothead, it's like, or whatever your drug of choice is. But now you can go to a website with a credit card, run it, and your drugs will be in the mail in 2 days or less, regardless of where you were in the United States. So word started spreading like wildfire about my capabilities, and that's when I started to get a little arrogant, and I'm here minimizing it. Started buying cars, started buying the jewelry, started going from being a loyal person to one woman to having a side chick and another side chick and my wife, and also being addicted to like prostitutes throughout the week. And what's crazy is that what people don't understand is that the drug game is just like any other drug game. Cocaine is controlled by certain cartels. Weed is controlled by certain cartels at that point in time. And when you think steroids, and when you think about a criminal enterprise, i.e. a crime organization, everybody thinks Russians. Why? Because some of the best anabolics comes from Russia. So here I am, a Puerto Rican / minority, growing like crazy, taking money from these people that are fucking ruthless, and them trying to figure out who the fuck is this person running and operating WFN, Wellness, Fitness, Nutrition. It has to be one of us. So I now opened up my gym, Iron Addicts Miami, I was around $30,000 to $35,000 in sales a day. However, what a lot of people don't understand is that by the time I had that gym opened, I was getting death threats probably about 3 a week, to the standpoint where I had armed guards taking my son to his private school. I had armed guards taking my wife to fucking Publix to shop for food. I had armed guards with me, taking me to my gym. And one of the most scariest experiences I remember, Olympia 2014. My wife and I were in the first row, and I get a phone call from an anonymous number. And an individual says, I see you in so-and-so row with so-and-so person, interacting with so-and-so person. You're staying at this hotel. This is your room number. You have 24 hours to give me $7.5 million. If not, I will kill you and I will kill your wife. And that was when I started realizing the magnitude of how big I was. Because prior to that, I was just getting nonsense death threats of people that were going out of business. Because let's face it, I had an internet platform that can help you get a product anywhere between $30 to $40 a bottle when I was manufacturing it myself. And it costed me only about $4 to $7 to make per bottle. You have it in your home in 2 days. You could process it with a credit card if you can't pay for it in cash right then and there. You can only imagine how many people went out of business. So I was getting death threats of, small-time distributors that probably were no longer able to sell the amount of products that they were selling, maybe to one gym because somebody in the gym, told the gym owner about my website. So those never really bothered me. But here I am at the Olympia, someone calling me, telling me where my hotel is, like the room I'm at, who I'm interacting with, and extorting me for that kind of money. As soon as I got out of the Olympia, but prior to that, as soon as I got that phone call, I spoke with one of my colleagues that was with me in that hotel. I was like, man, come over here real quick. He's like, I don't have tickets. I'm like, I do not give a shit. Come over here real quick, meet me outside. I met the dude outside, hired within 24 hours, 3 armed bodyguards, hovering around my wife and myself. Here I am in a hotel room with 3 armed guards on alert while my wife and I are sleeping. And I'm here trying to explain to my wife why the hell this is a situation, why the hell we're in this situation. And that's when our relationship started to take a huge turning point to the worst, because she never liked that lifestyle. I tried to keep it as away from her as possible because I didn't want her to know. However, a person that's selling gyms doesn't need 3 fucking bodyguards to make sure that they're all right. So that's when I confessed to her what I was doing. And she didn't want to have anything of it. And rightfully so. Our son at that point in time was 1 year old. And I told her, don't worry about it. I'm in the process of legitimizing this. And indeed I was. It's like I had a doctor at that time that was going through the process with the FDA and figuring out all the right licensures and agreements that needed to be in place. But it didn't stop. It didn't stop. I remember a month before Iron Addicts Gym, Miami, was scheduled to open up. And I get another phone call. This time, at that point in time, there was a Geneza Meds, and there was another online pharmacy that were the largest distributors at that time. And I was keeping tab. Eroids, I think it was called Eroids. Make a long story short, they were making about $5,000 or $6,000 a day. I knew, I knew through the grapevines through someone else, which Russians were the owners of those ventures. I get a phone call, and them telling me, "Hey, your gym is about to open up, and so date. If you want that gym to be successful, and you want us not to burn that place down, I strongly suggest for you to meet with us," and gave me a particular date. So here I am, already $2 million into this gym, really excited for it to really take off. And I get, unbeknownst to me, whoever the fuck it is, I don't even know if it's a fucking crank call for all I give a fuck, telling me that they would burn my fucking place down, this property down, if I don't meet them. So fortunate enough, at that point in time, I had an attorney that was also Russian that was on my retainer, and I asked him about the situation. And I was like, "Rich, you got to understand," and this is a person that has also worked with other people in the criminal organization, specifically with Russians at that point in time. And he's like, "Rich, what you got to understand is this. You're not them from an ethnicity standpoint. You're Puerto Rican, and yeah, it's going to only be a matter of time in which they'll be more aggressive in asking you for money monthly." So what I ended up doing was I was like, "Great, you make the arrangements for me to meet with them." So within 2 days, I am with my lawyer on a plane in New York and driving off to a little small area in fucking Queens. Here I am in this little Russian fucking tea room, and these two huge fucking diesel guys come in and sit down in front of me. Not gonna lie, man, I was shitting my fucking pants. But if it's one thing I learned in life, in business, is that you never show your true emotions. If you it's like have that poker face, even if deep down inside you're scared shitless. So here are these two guys telling me, "Hey, we're here to buy you out." By that time, it's like, man, WFN was at its growth rate, 25,000 easy a day of sales, for which net I was making about 15, 20. I looked at them and I'm sorry. I had a laugh. I was like, "I'm sorry, man, but this is comical. I know who you guys are. I know what websites you guys run. I have enough money to buy you out 4 times over." And they looked at me and they're like, you are an arrogant piece of shit." I was like, "We ought to do something to you and your family." I'm not here to show my arrogance. I'm just here to let you guys know that I have a proposition for you. And they're like, "What is it?" I was like, "I know what you guys are doing wrong from a distribution standpoint, from a marketing standpoint. I can help you guys sell more effectively. And in exchange, you guys are making more money. You leave me and my company alone and my ventures." They looked at each other, looked at me, and was like, "When would you like to start?" And that's when the death threats and everything started, because now I was not only running WFN, but some of the products that I was distributing under WFN were products in exchange for them that I would sell in hopes of them leaving me alone and not threatening threatening me and compromising my businesses. So, but that's when I made a deal with the devil. For people that don't know, it's like, it's one thing is selling steroids, and now it's one thing being aligned with like a criminal organization. A person like me that's a family man that just used to work his 15, 16-hour days and just goes home to his family now has to talk and interact with these kind of people. And some of the horror stories that these people would tell me. I remember one time sitting in Fontainebleau, hanging out, relaxing in the beach, and one of the guys that I met in the original meeting, I told him about a story about one of the guys that I just recently fired that happened to have been the cooperator in my case because he stole $250,000 from me. And he just had this facial expression that for anyone that doesn't know him, would just like, that would scare you shitless. And he's like, well, I would have killed him. I would have killed his family. I would chop him up to fucking pieces. And that's it. And I was like, so what are you doing? You're expecting me to do these results? I was like, well, they're stealing from you. They're stealing from me. So, what would you like to do about this? And there I am in a situation, and I'm like, holy fuck. What have I gotten myself into? And what's crazy is that I knew who it was. And it was a friend of mine. And yes, things didn't work out. So I told him at that point in time, I gotta handle this. Everything is good. I'll take the loss. Don't worry about it. But knowing the kind of people that I was now interacting with and engaging with, that shit scared the fuck out of me. Scared the fuck out of me, and I didn't want to tell this to my wife. I didn't want to tell this to some of my friends. So what I ended up doing was, I ended up asking the person that robbed me, says that, hey, you know what? I'm gonna take the loss. Just don't slander me. Don't anything. Don't ever do anything. But I don't ever want to see you again in here in Miami. If I do, then I'll go back on my promise, and you're gonna have things like you and I will have another unfortunate discussion. He respected me, never came back to Miami, and he continued to grow his steroid empire. I continue to grow mine. But fast forward to, and it's like, but now I'm in all these shows, and I had about $20,000-$30,000 in sales a day, and I'm still driving a Beetle. And here my gym is open. It's so funny. Here my gym is opened. All the people that are distributing anabolics for me, like in the parking lot for Iron Addicts Gym Miami, you see Bentleys, Rolls Royces, SLS, Lamborghinis, you name it, all the top cars. Not one of them was mine. However, I would park dead smack in front of the back door entrance, had my name on the on the parking space. And here I have like a little small Beetle, compact Beetle, with my name on it. And people will pass by. And it's crazy because people didn't even believe I was the damn owner. People people in the front desk would even ask me for like my ID. It's like, hey, who are you? And I was like, hey, you got paid last week? And they're like, yeah. I was like, let me pull out that pay stub and let me show you something. And they're like, great. I was like, see that signature there? And I show them my ID, like my driver's license. They're like, oh shit, I'm sorry, man. I didn't know that you were the owner. Because one of the things about me is that I was never egotistical from the standpoint where I wanted to be the face of everything. So people were always under the illusion that Iron Addict's success was based on Mike Rashid and CT Fletcher, that at that point in time were huge internet YouTube influencers. When in actuality, they never had a dime to their names. I was the one that fronted all the money, to achieve the success that Iron Addicts Gym Miami did. But man, the money just kept coming in and coming in and coming in and coming in. And I remember during that time, my relationship with my wife wasn't all that great. She went through a difficult pregnancy with Max. She went through 6 long months, caring for her mother with stage 3 cancer. And we went through therapy, relationship therapy and treatments and all that stuff. And, nothing worked out. Nothing worked out. We weren't having any relationships. We were like sexual relationships. So here I have all this money coming in, this fantastic gym, this fantastic lifestyle, that I started to splurge. My drug of choice at that point in time, unfortunately, was women. Once I had one, I had another, and then I had another, and then I had another, to the standpoint where my bodyguard at that point in time, I used to have 3 iPhones. One for the gym, one for my anabolics business, and just one for women. And it was so crazy that our protocol daily was at 6 in the morning, I would work out with him at the gym. And by like 7 o'clock, we're upstairs. He would have probably pictures and videos of like 15 different women. And I would just go through them and be like, okay, great. These 3 I want on Monday. These 2 I want on Tuesday. This one looks so hot that I probably want her all to myself. I'll take her on Friday. And it was just consistent after week after week after week, to the standpoint where I'm now so mentally and physically exhausted for having fucked all these hookers that I'm now just getting creative. So I remember one crazy story one time. I can't name names of the athlete, but here I am trying to convince this famous Major League Baseball athlete that lived in Miami at that time. Hey, I want you to come in to be a sponsored athlete for my clinic. And I knew what kind of women he liked. I knew that he used to have a fascination for hookers. So we organized a hotel in which I had about 8 different women. And we ended up just train wrecking those women. I'm talking about, like, here I am possessed on anabolics, possessed on a dick injection, fucking a girl for like 45 minutes. Sometimes, like, it's like, and then just passing them on. Dude, it was crazy, because here I am, like, having like literally girls lined up, butt ass fucking naked, and all they were waiting for was to get fucked. It got to a point where it was really, it's like, I'm thinking to myself, like, what the fuck am I doing? It's like, this is getting out of control, but I was just having fun. And after like 3 or 4 hours, 4 or 5 nuts, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm fucking exhausted. 2 girls still haven't been fucked. Boom, I take more fucking anabolics. I take more, like more of the dick injection into my dick just to fuck for another hour and a half. Those other 2 women. And imagine that this is a person that's doing it every other day for 1 or 2 women. And it's funny, because my lawyer at that point in time, he used to tell me, he's like, Rich, I think honestly you're just fucking different types of girls just for a story. Because it's like you've gotten immune to it. You've gotten immune to that whole concept of sex. To the standpoint where after like a few months, I had a steady side chick. I had my wife that I would have maybe sexual relationships with for like once or twice a week. My side chick that I would have maybe sex with for like once or twice a week. And I would have sex with like 2 or 3 different women every other day. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, not on the weekends. And that's not even to include when I would go on a trip to like Vegas and all that. So, this is completely irrelevant of my case, but what people fail to realize is that, dude, it's like when you get that kind of money and when you get that kind of power, you're not accustomed to it, you're gonna be addicted to something. And since I already was immune to this whole steroid thing, because I've taken steroids all through I was a child, I always used to have to work hard because I wasn't necessarily the most good looking. I had the gift of gab. I could convince a girl if I talked enough with her and if I made her laugh enough to sleep with me and go in bed with me when I was in high school and junior high school. However, here I am, and women practically being thrown at me. So I'm probably on average having sex with about 9 women a week, not including my wife and my ex and my side chick. And dude, it was just crazy. And the craziest story, the most women I ever had sex with at one time, it was when I came up with a product that I wanted to sell in the porn industry. I wanted to sell a dick injection in the porn industry because the market for the bodybuilders and the powerlifters was getting saturated. That dick injection, in a nutshell, to summarize, upon injecting your penis within 1 second, you're ready to knock a woman out. And it will not go down no matter how many times you climax until you take an antidote to bring it down. So I felt like I was Wolverine on steroids. Like my penis was like Wolverine on steroids. So well, it was one time I had my bodyguard had 6 girls. 6 girls in my hotel room. And what's so funny is that he thought that he was going to be able to share those 6 girls. And dude, when I saw the beauty of those 6 women there ready to like please me, I tell those girls, I was like, wait 1 second. I go into the restroom, inject my penis 1 second in, I'm ready to knock them out. I tell my bodyguard, it's like, hey man, it's like I left something downstairs, it's really important. Can you go to the car? He's like, great. I locked the fucking door. That dude is knocking after like 10 minutes when I'm pounding one of the fucking girls. He's knocking on the door thinking he's gonna get laid. Didn't even get laid at all. That day I had sex with 6 women over the span of 3.5 hours. And anybody that would have experienced that would probably, and is proud of it would tell you that, hey, it was an amazing feeling. I was disgusted, dude. I was disgusted at what I became. Here I have a woman that was loyal to me to a T, ready to do anything for me. And I'm out here paying for pussy. So during that time, I just didn't know what the fuck to do. So my wife, up until the point in which about 3 to 4 months doing that, my wife ended up finding out that that I had someone else. And we went through therapy. We fixed our sex life. I held on to no longer being, working with prostitutes, having prostitutes and all that stuff, and just strictly focusing on my wife. But by then it's like all this money was still coming in. So I remember what I used to do for shits and giggles. I remember one time my wife was at the Aventura Mall, and she was in the Cartier, and there was a Panther collection where like the ring, just alone the ring was like about $20,000, and now the ring, the bracelet, and the earrings, and the watch, you're easily spending about $250,000-$300,000. I remember her saying, I would love this ring, blah blah blah. So I'm at the gym at that time. I'm sweaty. I have like a shirt broken, tied. I have pants like all chewed up. Because when I work out hardcore, man. I'm not trying to be all preppy and shit. So I go and whatchamacallit. I go and then it's to the Cartier, and here I am, and these people are looking at me like, who is this guy? So they stopped me right then and there. Like, excuse me, sir, you can't go in here. And I was like, well, no, my wife is right over there. She wants to, she's interested in the Panther collection. So I'm here to help her in making that purchase. Little did they know that at that time, I was an individual that already had a McLaren P1, a $1.2 million car, that even though I did not look the par, I have a McLaren bag that had about $160,000 in cash in that Louis Vuitton bag, specifically with the McLaren snakeskin bag that usually comes. But anyway, I'm there sitting down. My wife is like, "Oh my God, I love the entire collection, but let me just get the ring because I think that's all we could afford." My wife at that point in time didn't know how much money I was really making. So the guy's looking at me in complete and utter fucking disgust because you got this sweaty, like, juice head guy there, like, and his wife very well dressed and well mannered in the place. And my egotistical self was telling me, I was like, hey man, how much is for the entire collection? He's like, oh, well, we offer financing, blah, blah, blah. He was avoiding the questions. I'm like, look, I'm not asking you what are the financing options. I'm asking you what's the price for the things in which my wife wants. And he's like, well, I think that the ring should be sufficient because the ring is like $13,000. I was like, what? So you think I can't afford this? I was like, how much? And I'm sorry to curse at you. How much is the fucking price for everything that she wants? And here my wife is embarrassed because now I'm getting aggressive and I'm getting unprofessional. The guy was like, look, I'm sorry to interrupt and all that stuff, but it's going to come out to about $120,000. And I was like, do you accept cash? The dude's mouth dropped. Now here I am opening up my bag. My wife crying because she's like, where the hell this, like my husband got this kind of cash. I'm there like counting hundreds, and stashes, for these dudes in Cartier, to the point in which I came up with the appropriate amount. They gave us the jewelry, and we walked out of the store. The reason why this story is so crazy is because I was prejudged. People were looking, it's like as soon as I go in that store, it's like people were looking at me like, it's just dirtbag. He's not going to be able to afford not even to fucking pick up our garbage. But that's when I started being exposed to spending money even more and more and more just because of a story. Just like I was fucking just like I was fucking midgets, women with no teeth, 5 girls at a time, doing these crazy like sescapades and sex runs just for a fucking story. I was now purchasing things in the most ridiculous ways for a story. I remember my first Rolex watch. I was ungroomed. I didn't shave. I looked straight up like a fucking homeless dude. Shorts all beat up, sandals, like my feet dry with no lotion. I go into the Mayors in Aventura, and I look at the Presidential Rainbow Edition Rolex that was $96,000. And I didn't start off there initially because those expensive watches are in a special section. So I started walking down the regular area where the Rolex watches of $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 were. Here I am talking to, it's like here I am looking at all of them. Nobody was even remotely interested in helping me. And one of the guys that I'm friends with till this day, newbie, probably wasn't there as an employee for more than like a week. What did he do? He took that risk. That day I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm interested in buying my first Rolex, blah, blah, blah. He's like, great, man. It's like, what's your style? I was like, I just want the most expensive one. He's like, excuse me? I was like, we offer financing and all that stuff. I'm like, look, I'm going to make your life easy. I want the most expensive one. And during that time, all I knew about was Rolex Presidential. But I've only heard about the name because it's like, I love music, I love rap, I hip hop, and you always hear people Rolex Presidentials and all that stuff. So I was ignorant, just like I was ignorant with cars, but I was buying them just because they were great looking and all that stuff. I was ignorant with watches. To this day, I'm ignorant with watches. So he goes and he shows me, like, well, this is a limited edition, rainbow edition, 18 karat solid gold, had all these different diamond colors and all that stuff. And he's like, but this one is like about $95,000. I was great. I want to buy it right now in cash. The guy was like, I made the dude's day. I made his sales quota that day for the month. And what's crazy is that because he did not prejudge me and because he did not, he went out of his way to help me. I was constantly making his sales quota every single month for the next 6 months. My wife wanted Bulgari jewelry. If my side chick wanted Bulgari jewelry. If one of my athletes wanted a Rolex watch, I would call him. He would come to the gym. He would show me some pictures. I'd be like, I want that watch. I want this one. I want this piece of jewelry. He would get it for me, deliver it to me, him personally, and things were going great. But then, early 2016 is when I couldn't think anything was going wrong. I had, by early 2016, February, I had a McLaren 650S, a McLaren P1, a Mercedes-Benz SLS AMG Black Edition, 2 Maseratis, Porsche Cayenne GTS, Porsche Panamera, Porsche 911 GT3. I had 2 Maserati, a Land Rover, and I had the latest car that I had before I got popped was the Bentley Bentayga. I had 3 houses. I had a house. I had a condo at the May. I had a condo at the Accoya. I had a like practically Collins Avenue, like unlocked. By then, I had around 37,000 clients ordering from my website, ordering from distributors. I had multiple sales channels. I mean, I was fucking rocking. But little did I know, in 2016, I started expanding into the celebrity business. That's when I met Mark Wahlberg. And he needed, through a private trainer that coached in Los Angeles, used to train a lot of celebrities and prepping them for their shows. Needed a source, needed an anabolic source. And, I flew out to Los Angeles. I met Mr. Wahlberg, and I met his trainer at that point in time. And he's telling me about this film, called Pain and Gain, that he was trying to prepare for, that he needed to gain a certain amount of muscle at a certain period of time. And now, that's when I'm fucking starstruck. Here I am in a restaurant in fucking Los Angeles, California, with fucking Mark Wahlberg. And I realized that was the turning point of my life. That's all I wanted to do. I was like, fuck steroids, fuck everything. I just want to be a celebrity trainer. I want to have my few gyms and provide and be a great father. However, little did I know that same exact month that I was introduced to Mark Wahlberg is the same exact month that an investigation was happening with my company. So after I met Mark and we agreed that they're going to be filming the movie Pain and Gain in Florida, that I'll be able to be in attendance during the movie shoots and teaching him all the right protocols and everything like that for him to get ready for the movie. I helped him gain about 37 pounds in a month and a half. The guy was a fucking monster. So here I am, unbeknownst to me, that a case was being billed on WFN because of something that transpired with one of my employees out in New Jersey. I'm still living this extravagant fucking life, now training and coaching and preparing fucking Mark Wahlberg for a fucking movie. So fast forward, I finished coaching him. It was like a 3-month stint. And we kept close relationships, and he introduced me to, you name it, Channing Tatum, Josh Duhamel. Once you get one celebrity, you do good by them, it's like you're pretty much in. And however, all throughout that time, the person that was managing the day-to-day operations for WFN, I kept getting fucking consistent phone calls every week. Hey man, like the shipment from China got seized. Hey man, the shipment in Arizona got seized. Hey man, so-and-so from Arizona got stopped, got caught with 100 bottles. I'm like, great, the procedures. Was he out? He's like, yeah, he got out one day, boom, no questions, case dismissed. I'm like, great. But little did I know that this was just becoming too fucking frequent. I'm like, fuck, why is this happening now? I'm no longer involved in the business by then. I just have somebody like managing it where I just get, like a franchise would work. I'm getting a monthly fucking royalty. And fast forward to October 2016. By October 2016, I probably have gotten 20 plus people in my company that originally gotten caught. And I'm talking about even people overseas that have gotten caught with probably hundreds of bottles of anabolics. In and out of prison, case dismissed, no problems asked. I would visit them after they get their cases dismissed, pay them 2 months of severance, have them living very, very well, not worried about work at all, and everything is fine and dandy. November though, 2016, one of the guys, which I can't name his name, gets caught in a handoff went wrong around Aventura. And that day, my lawyer calls me. He's like, Rich, I don't know where he's at. I don't know what prison. I haven't gotten a phone call. This is not right. So I'm thinking to myself, I was like, hey, let's just give it a day. Let's just see how things are going. You know, like it was like give it a day. One day turns to a week. 1 week turns to 2 weeks. On the beginning of the third week, I'm nervous as shit. I'm like, fuck, I don't know what the hell is going on with this person. Out the blue, early morning on a Monday, I remember, my lawyer calls me. He's like, Rich, they let him out. He's nervous as hell. He doesn't want to talk to me. Why don't you come over and talk to him? I'm like, great. So here I am driving, nervous as fuck, not knowing what the hell is going on, having all these, packages being seized, having all these people consistently on a weekly basis being popped, and not thinking anything of it. And now, boom, this person taking weeks to be released. So I'm sitting down with him, taking my same approach as I have always. And I was like, hey man, what's going on? What's transpired? And he's like, man, they were asking me about a company called WFN, them distributing steroids. They're asking me about this guy named Dr. Rodriguez, which happened to have been my alias. But none of my employees knew about anything. For all they knew, they were distributing regular products. They didn't know that I was like doing anything illegally per se. So as soon as he started telling me that, I just started nodding my head, and I was like, look, man, it was great. Thanks for all this information. Same procedure as I did with everybody else. Here's a couple of months' pay. I'm going to hang out with your family and all that other stuff. And things were, and things will be fine. You have your job is guaranteed. That's when I knew that the end was near. November, I remember a week later, it being my wife's birthday. And here I am at STK with all her friends and my family, and me not being there, like mentally, like channeled out. But my I couldn't figure out a way to tell my wife, who I love dearly, the mother of my child, that hey, something's going to happen. I have a feeling it's going to happen really, really soon. So I didn't tell her anything. I kept going on. Thanksgiving, kept going on. All the while, the person that got caught, still not, it's like still enjoying a nice vacation that I paid for. And then December 3rd, 2016, somebody calls me that worked for me. He's like, hey, our spot in Vegas got raided. And during that time, the person that was the main corroborator in my case, that also happened to have been the person that stole the $250,000 from me, I knew he was out of Vegas. So I'm like, shit. It's like, what's going to happen? And when I heard that, I shut down my operations, man. I shut down my operations for like a month. And orders were accruing and accruing and accruing and accruing. And people... it's like people were telling me, it's like, hey, it's like, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. I was trying to keep tabs on the person that cooperated with me in my case. And he's still out there living it up and all that stuff. So I couldn't really put the pieces together. So after like about a month of no new news, what I started doing was just like, fuck it. Let me just start the operation up again. Now we're at January. I start my operation back up again. And within 3 weeks I started my operation again. I'm getting my employees, hey man, I feel like I'm being followed. Hey man, somebody's taking pictures. Hey man, it's like, I just don't feel right. I feel like somebody's like constantly like on top of me and all that other stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, like, these guys are just fucking paranoid as shit because I'm not experiencing it. I thought that I was fucking, it's like I thought I was going fucking nuts. And I never had any level of paranoia, but I have all these people calling me. And I'm like, look, I can understand one person having a certain level of paranoia, but every single person telling me, say, hey man, I'm being followed, I'm being followed, I'm being followed. I see a car hovering around in the corner, man, that hasn't moved there for like hours. I'm like, holy shit, it's about to fucking happen. So the remaining weeks of January, I'm flying in and out of different places, trying to get my affairs in orders and all that other stuff. And February 1st, my wife wanted to take a trip, and I already knew things were going south with all these busts happening and all that stuff. She wanted to take a trip to Dominican Republic for me to be able to meet her family that I've never had a chance to meet. By then, we were already married for 15 years. And here I am in a mansion in the Dominican Republic with butlers and an entire family of my wife. And I couldn't enjoy it. I couldn't enjoy it because I knew that I was gonna go to prison. And I still kept it away from my wife. I still kept it a secret. I would just tell her, it's like, hey man, no, it's just stress at work. I just lost a business deal. The gym that I was thinking about launching in Los Angeles didn't go through. Just to kind of get her mind off of what was going to be inevitable. February 14th on Valentine's Day was the last day that my wife told me she loved me. February 14th at 5 p.m. I tell her that I have to leave to go to the airport. During that time, I used to have a side chick in the following building, so I would go to my side. That night I went to my side chick, hung out at her place, left on the 16th at 4 in the morning to the airport, and by 4:35 a.m. when I'm awaiting my flight to Los Angeles, that's when disaster happened. My assistant at that time, she sends me a text message. Hey Rich, they just raided the gym. There's a shit ton of DEA agents and marshals with AR-15s pointing it at gym members. They've trashed your office. They trashed every single place because they're saying that you're illegally distributing steroids and anabolics from your gyms. And there I am, like going crazy, trying to get this damn plane to lift off, man. Because it's like, I need to get these affairs in order in Los Angeles. If not, it's like I'm gonna lose out on millions, because I was always knowing that the ending was near, but it's like I needed to get my affair in orders. So I see these messages keep on coming in. I say, they just arrested so-and-so. They just arrested so-and-so. They just arrested your cousin in his place. Everything was like, I felt like for those 5 minutes that I was getting probably like 30 plus text messages, it felt like like a fucking eternity. And then the most destructive message arrived from her. Rich, your wife is outside in bra and panties and handcuffs on her. And by that time, I was already sitting down in my seat in first class, and all I could do was just cry. I was like, I can't leave. I can't leave my wife. I can't leave my son. I was like, what can I do? By then, the plane was set to depart. And it bothered me. It bothered me that I can't be there for my wife and my kid. So, fortunate enough, 2 minutes in, you get an announcement. I got an announcement. It's like, we are experiencing technical difficulties and are unable to depart. Please be patient. I knew there was no way damn in hell that there was technical difficulties in the fucking plane. I look to my left. I open up the window. I see the electrical stairs coming up towards the exit of the plane, and marshals with ARs following the fucking stairs. I remember two of them coming in and politely asking, "Hey," not with their guns locked, ready to load, a very polite fashion. "Is there a Richard Rodriguez in this plane?" That's when I knew I was going to have a life in prison for a considerable amount of time. Rose my hand. Manny Puri was the U.S. Marshal. He was a gym member. Was on my TRT. Phenomenal guy, very respectful. Here I am handcuffed, walking through Miami International Airport with three marshals around me, armed, and me in the middle in between all three of them, being transported back to my home. And the guy was so amazing that I remember asking him during during my transport. I was like, "Hey man, can you please find out what's going on with my wife, man? Because I find it very disrespectful for you guys to have my wife practically naked outside." And he was like, "I'll take care of it." He didn't even know that transpired. He didn't even know that these guys didn't even announce themselves, didn't even knock. My wife was sleeping with my 3-year-old son in his room, and all she remembers is people saying, "Get the fuck down." It's like, if you do not announce who the fuck you are, we will shoot. And till this day, my ex-wife has PTSD about the situation. She thought all she could do was just cry and hold on to our son, because she thought she was actually going to die. She didn't even know what the situation was, who these people were. All she saw was just 10 plus people with AR-15s ready to fucking shoot if she's so far as to just fucking blink incorrectly. So all she could do is just hold on to Max for her dear life. And it's crazy because I had the opposite experience. I was in a plane, asked for my name. I raised my hand. They handcuffed me and they took me. This marshal, man, we became friends because he handled the situation phenomenally, and he saw how pissed off I was on the situation, and he reprimanded and took care of all the situation and got everything resolved in a very well fashion. However, when that transpired, and I knew what the DA task officer informed me while I was in our condo of what transpired. That's when I knew it's like, my life was done. My life was done. The lawyer at that time transported me, my wife, and the 15 other co-defendants to the building in Miami, the federal building, federal holding facility in Miami, in downtown Miami. I see my wife, because they separate the women and the men. I see my wife on another side, and I see the other 15 co-defendants that are males, standing with me, and my wife depressed, us not knowing what's going on with Max, our son. And fortunate enough at that time, we had my bodyguard at that time took care of my son Max for 3 weeks. For 3 weeks. Until my wife got out on bond. But fast forward to my trial. Here I am, a person that was providing a service that I knew I did wrong. And I understand, that I should pay for my actions. However, I never knew in my life that I was going to do almost damn near 6 years, let alone be sentenced to almost 8. Worst case scenario, get a slap on the wrist. I'm here to say the feds took over $23 million from me. Shot first, asked questions later. Destroyed the reputation of my gym franchises, the relationships that I had, in the gym franchise business. Destroyed the relationships I had in the anabolic steroid industry. And portrayed me as this evil, criminal human being, when in actuality, for people that truly knew me, they knew how far I would go to help people before I even helped myself. And, my life was just at a constant downhill since then. I had bond probably for like 2 weeks, because here I am trying to finalize a business deal to set up a legitimate business before I know I was going to be doing some serious amount of time. While I was out on bond, I put a request with the judge to allow me to travel to California to close this business venture. And I remember in the court presenting this travel request, and this is just how ruthless the feds are. The federal prosecutor told her that he has reason to believe that I am in the process of fleeing. And built this phenomenal case to have this judge believe that that was indeed true. And that was the last day, officially, for 5.5 years, that I was a free man. So now I want to talk to you guys about my time in prison. See, anybody that tells you that prison is tough to endure, that prison is a horrible experience, some of that is true, some of that is not. I remember Mike Tyson, one time he got interviewed, he was saying some of the best years of his life was when he was in prison. Because he said that he was at peace. I want to add on to that. I appreciate the, being incarcerated. Not the fact of being incarcerated for 5.5 years, but being in prison, because it cleansed me of all these human beings that didn't need to be in my life in the first place. When you're popping bottles, when you're making $30, $40, $50, $60,000 in sales a day, buying drinks in the club, VIP sections, having sex with the most amazing women that you can have, paying for some of those most amazing women, to hang out with your best friends, like, you're on the top of the world. Nothing can go wrong. Of course, everyone's going to say that they're going to ride with you to the end. And here I am in prison, not one person reaching out to me, not one person putting money in my books, not one person telling me, hey, you know what? I'm here for you. I'm here for your family in case you need anything. Dude, I went through depression. I went through a serious stage of depression. And I'm here to tell you that prison and the federal system would test your sanity, would test your optimism, would test everything in your life to the point in which I don't think there's anyone else that can. My confidence was shot. I was never a person that ever experienced depression in his life, let alone even considered attempting to commit suicide. And here I am, 7 months in, I received divorce papers from my wife. She has every valid reason to do that. I've embarrassed her, I've degraded her, I've done so many things that at that point in time, it was the rightful thing. I remember a friend of mine, Thomas Brown. He's still in prison, man. I love you. Um, I had so much liquor. I had so many drugs from Xanax to K2, you name it, I had it all lined up. And here I am reading these divorce papers, crying like you never could imagine. And right when I was about to pop the pills, he comes into the room, slaps the shit out of me, man. Like slaps the shit out of me, man. He's like, you got a kid that loves you, man. You got a kid that loves you. I can see you every single time at night talking to him on the video, and how he asks you when you're coming home. And I see every night you being my cellmate, how at times you even cry because you're lying to your son that you can't be around because you're at work. You're a great man, Rich. Do not destroy your life and do not end your life because of a woman. Because he's never going to forgive you for it. And that was when my emotional codependency for having somebody in my life was no longer in existence. How can I say, it's like I've destroyed emotion. It's like I became like this blank person where nothing affected me. Here I was prior to prison being this aggressive, this aggressive person, quick to go from 0 to 60 with anger, and being forthcoming and helpful with a lot of people, being more strategic, being more humble, to the standpoint where 2 years into this prison and this camp, and 5 years and 3 months in prison, and I'm proud to say that I have met more people that can become genuine friends that I would love to help out when they come out, than I met in my entire 35 years as a free man. And the reasons why I say that is because a lot of those individuals in prison share very similar stories. They were a lot like me, human beings that just possessed the skill, figured out a loophole, figured out a profession to make astronomical amount of money. And what do? They bring people on that they can trust, sometimes friends, sometimes brothers, sometimes wives, and to help them get a better life. And 6 months down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, those very people that you fed, those very people that you've built up, are the very people that take you down. I'm here to tell you that people that have followed me know that the two main corroborators in my case was my best friend of 22 years and my brother. So if you can't get loyalty from family and people that you can consider family, because if you're a friend with somebody for 22 years, you're practically brothers. If you can't get loyalty from them, this world is very, very dark, man. That's why I came out June 8th, and I've only been talking and interacting and being with a small amount of people. I can probably count with one hand the people in which I consider true, genuine friends. And it's people that, that have been with me, through thick and thin. When I didn't have not even $1 to my name in commissary, I had, it's like, I'm a business partner now, Owen Nelson, man. It's like, there was times in which I didn't even have money to buy a gift for my son.
This guy used to go out his way, man. He used to go out his way just to buy a gift for my son. He had no incentives or intentions of, or even reasons, to do so. That's a person that like right now, man, I'll take care of, and I'm always going to take care of him because I admire and I respect what he's done when he didn't have to do any of that. My mom, living on a fixed income, and when my pops passed away, she figured out a damn way for me to at least have like $100 in my books. It's like Bobby, man, like my friend from high school, a little geek. I remember I used to be the type of person, I used to beat up bullies in high school, man. And Bobby Lou, man, Asian kid. I remember people used to pick on him, and he was one of the people always putting in $100 in my books whenever he can. And dude, I'm gonna go see you in New York soon, man. Congrats on your honeymoon. People like that, they're gonna be forever in my heart. Because those people that do know me, man, I have uncompromising loyalty. And people like that have been with me in my lowest of lows deserve to enjoy my highest of highs. And I thank God that I've rebounded. I'm doing great. And I want those people that have been with me to also do great, to enjoy my successes, but also to be there with my failures and motivate me to continue to chug along. But rest assured, guys, if you're engaging in criminal activities, or if you're engaging in any type of business, is like, keep your circle small, man. Because when thick and thin happens and things start to go downhill really, really quickly, you're gonna be surprised how many people stick through it. And I'm proud to say that I have 4 quarters instead of 100 pennies, but those 4 quarters are very valuable, man. And I'm grateful for everyone else that has helped me bounce back. I'm proud to say that this past week has been the most amazing week of my life. Just being able to hold my son, being able to take him out to go-karts, to whatever it is that he wants, hanging out on the beach with him, taught me what I should have valued in the first place. I should have never engaged in criminal activity because I missed out on a lot of things with my son, in which I'm never going to miss out ever again. And guys, thank you so much for everything. Thanks for this. Take care.